If someone had asked me a year ago what my biggest fear was, I would have said something simple: losing a patient at work, or maybe watching my daughter grow up too fast. I never would have guessed that the real danger was sleeping beside me every night, kissing my cheek every morning, and calling himself my husband. It all started on a Thursday evening in Portland, Oregon, the kind of early spring night when the air is still chilly, but the sky turns pastel pink like it's trying to convince you summer is coming. I had just finished a 12-hour shift at the cardiac unit. My scrubs smelled faintly of disinfectant, my hair was a mess, and all I wanted was a hot shower and my softest pajama pants. Instead, when I opened the door to our house, I walked straight into something that felt wrong. Jason was in the living room, nothing unusual there, but he wasn't alone. Sitting cross-legged on the rug beside him was Ruby Hayes, my daughter's art tutor. 29, blonde, soft-spoken, the type who wears oversized sweaters and vintage rings, and always looks like she just stepped out of an indie movie. And Jason was laughing with her. Not the polite laugh he used with coworkers, not the stiff one he used when I made a joke he didn't really get. This was easy, relaxed, like they shared a joke I wasn't part of. Emma sat nearby, drawing in her sketchbook, oblivious. Or maybe not. "Hannah!" Ruby jumped up when she saw me, her smile too bright. "We were just finishing Emma's lesson. Jason made us tea." Jason stood, brushing something lint off Ruby's sleeve before stepping toward me. "You're home early," he said, voice smooth as ever. "Tough shift?" "Always," I murmured, forcing a smile. But my eyes lingered on the way Ruby tucked her hair behind her ear, while Jason watched, almost too closely. I shook off the unease. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe Mom! Emma bounded toward me, her pencil smudging her cheek. "Miss Ruby taught me how to shade trees. Look!" Her drawing was lovely vibrant greens and soft shadows, but I couldn't stop glancing past her at Jason and Ruby standing a little too close. Ruby packed her supplies. "Jason offered to help me carry things to my car," she said casually. My eyebrows lifted. Jason never volunteered to carry my things. Still, I said nothing. They walked out together, and I watched through the front window as he opened her car trunk for her. She laughed lightly at something he said, touching his arm. A spark of something cold flickered inside me, but I told myself not to be paranoid. Jason was a husband. Ruby was a tutor. People can talk without it meaning anything, right? That night, after Emma went to bed, Jason showered and slipped into bed beside me. He smelled like cedar body wash, my favorite, but his kiss on my cheek felt distracted, like he was somewhere else entirely. "You seem distant," I said softly. "I'm tired," he replied quickly. "You're overthinking." I wanted to believe him. I really, really did. But when I closed my eyes, all I saw was Ruby's hand brushing his too easy laugh, their shared glances. The next afternoon, I picked Emma up from school. She was quieter than usual, her sketchbook hugged to her chest. "You okay, sweetheart?" She hesitated before answering. "Mom, can I ask you something? But you have to promise not to get mad." The way she said it, nervous, fragile, made my stomach tighten. "I won't get mad. What is it?" Emma gnawed on her lip the way she did when she was unsure of something. If something bad happened to you, would Dad marry Miss Ruby?" I froze. "What?" My voice cracked more than I meant it to. Emma looked down at her shoes. "I just wondered, because they talk a lot, more than before." My heartbeat stuttered. "What makes you say that? Did someone tell you something?" "No," she whispered. "I just see things." I forced a smile. "Honey, adults can be friendly. It doesn't mean, but she wasn't done. Last night, she whispered, I went to get water, and Dad and Miss Ruby were in the kitchen talking, really close. He told her she was beautiful. The air left my lungs as if I'd been punched. A million thoughts raced through my mind, denial, anger, fear, confusion. But I swallowed them all because Emma was watching me with wide, worried eyes. Mama, she said softly, I don't like it. Neither did I. But what terrified me more wasn't the idea of Jason being unfaithful, it was that my 8-year-old daughter already sensed something dark growing beneath the surface of our home. Did they see you? I asked. Emma shook her head. I hid behind the fridge. I heard Miss Ruby say. She paused, looked like she wanted to swallow the words back, then continued. She said it would all be easier if she weren't in the picture. I swear my blood ran cold. I tried to stay calm for Emma, but inside me a storm was forming, silent, violent, undeniable. Baby, I said, kneeling in front of her. Are you sure that's what you heard? Emma nodded, eyes filling with tears. And then she whispered something that made my world tilt. Mom, I think Dad wants you gone. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. All I felt was terror blooming in my chest. But then Emma wrapped her arms around my neck and said, I don't want anything to happen to you. That's why I'm telling you now. I held her tight, my mind spinning, and one single chilling thought rose above the rest. What if my daughter wasn't imagining things? What if this was the warning I wasn't supposed to ignore? And deep down, I already knew. She was right. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Emma's small voice repeating those awful words. Mom, I think Dad wants you gone. It should have sounded ridiculous, impossible, absurd. But instead, it stuck to me like something bitter and poisonous, because deep inside, a crack had already formed long before Emma said anything. And now, everything started making terrifying sense. Friday morning, the house felt too quiet, too staged. Jason was humming softly in the kitchen as he made coffee, acting like the type of husband who reads marriage advice blogs and tries to follow them. Morning, sweetheart, he called out when he heard me. I made your favorite blend. He smiled. But it wasn't a warm smile. It was a practiced one. A performance. I stared at the mug he offered me. Perfect temperature. My favorite vanilla creamer. The exact amount of sugar. He remembered every detail. And that was the problem. Men who wanted to keep their wives alive didn't suddenly become perfect husbands overnight. I didn't drink it. He shrugged casually and took a sip himself, like nothing was off. But I noticed his eyes tracking me, measuring me, cataloging every movement. Big weekend coming up, he said lightly as he buttered toast. I was thinking we could go up to the lake house tomorrow. Just the three of us. Family time. I forced a smile. The one at Mirror Lake? Yeah, should be peaceful. No cell service, no interruptions. His tone dipped too satisfied. No interruptions. The words curled in my stomach like a warning flare. After dropping Emma at school, I sat in the car trying to steady my breathing. I kept telling myself that maybe Emma misunderstood. Maybe she misheard. Maybe she imagined it. But everything she said replayed with sickening clarity. So I picked her up early, told the office she had a dentist appointment, and took her for ice cream at a small shop near the river. It was quiet, calm, people reading books or walking their dogs. The kind of normal that felt too far from my reality. When we sat down with our cones, I gently asked, Honey, can you tell me everything you heard the other night? All of it. Don't be scared of hurting my feelings. Emma stared at the melting vanilla drizzle on her cone. Do I have to? Yes, I whispered. You're safe with me. Always. She took a shaky breath. Dad and Miss Ruby were in the kitchen, she began, voice soft. They thought I was asleep. They were talking really close, like when two people whisper secrets. I felt my heart drum hard against my ribs. What did they say? I urged. He said, Emma swallowed, that your insurance policy would cover everything. My blood ran cold. What insurance policy? The one you signed last month, she said innocently. The papers Dad gave you on the counter. He said you signed it without reading it. I felt dizzy. I remembered those documents. Jason told me they were for tax adjustments. He even kissed my forehead and thanked me for handling the paperwork. He always acted like finances stressed him out. He must have counted on me trusting him. What else did you hear? I whispered. Emma twisted the napkin in her hands. Miss Ruby asked, what about Emma? And Dad said, kids bounce back. She'll be fine. We'll take care of her. I felt the world tilt. He said they could finally be together, Emma continued, the words tumbling out now. He said people would understand after it happened. My throat tightened so hard I could barely breathe. And Miss Ruby said, just make it quick. Something that looks like an accident. The lake house is perfect. I gripped the table to stay upright. A fall at the lake house. No cell service. No interruptions. My husband wasn't planning a family weekend. He was planning the perfect cover story. Emma's voice cracked. Mom, I didn't want to tell you. I was scared. Dad always seems so normal. But I don't think he is. I leaned over and pulled her into my arms. You did the right thing, baby. I'm so proud of you for telling me. I meant it. Her words might have saved my life. But what now? Tell the police? With what evidence? Jason was charming, established, respected. I was just a tired nurse with a terrified child and a suspicion that sounded insane without proof. I needed someone who would believe me before believing him. Someone who didn't fall for Jason's polished smile. And then a memory came to me, my Aunt Carla. My mother's older sister. A woman with sharp intuition and even sharper training. 20 years in the police force before retiring early and becoming a private investigator. If anyone could see through Jason, it was her. Carla lived 30 minutes outside Portland, in a quiet neighborhood filled with tall pine trees and little cottages. When she opened the door and saw my face, she didn't even ask questions, just stepped aside. Sit, she said, motioning to her couch. Start from the beginning. I told her everything, the lingering touches between Jason and Ruby, the insurance documents, the kitchen conversation Emma overheard, the lake house, the sudden push for a weekend trip. By the end, Carla's jaw was set in stone. Jesus, Hannah, she muttered. I knew Jason was controlling, but this is something else. She paced the room, muttering to herself. Then she stopped and looked at me with the kind of expression only a seasoned investigator has, half suspicion, half certainty. If Emma heard the timeline right, she said slowly, you may only have days before whatever he planned happens. My skin prickled. Carla leaned forward. You can't go home tonight. You can't be alone with him. And you absolutely cannot go to that lake house. I swallowed hard. Then what do we do? Carla took a long breath, her eyes narrowing with determination. We get ahead of him. We gather proof. We make a plan. And Hannah, she placed a firm hand on my shoulder. You fight for your life like hell. Her voice dropped to a low, chilling whisper. Because your husband already decided he wants you gone. Carla didn't waste a second. The moment Emma fell asleep on her couch, curled up under a quilt she kept for guests, Carla pulled out a yellow legal pad, uncapped a pen with her teeth, and said, All right, Hannah, let's connect the dots. I felt like I was floating outside my own body. Everything inside me was trembling, yet my mind was painfully sharp, taking in every word, every breath, every possibility. First, Carla said, drawing a circle on the page, let's talk about motive. Money, I whispered. She nodded. Always is. Carla had spent decades in law enforcement. She'd seen every kind of case: insurance fraud, domestic violence, staged accidents, even homicides disguised as camping mishaps. She was the kind of woman who trusted patterns over excuses and actions over words. So, you said Jason gave you some tax documents to sign last month, she said. Did you read any of them? My face burned with shame. No, he said it was paperwork for the accountant. Carla let out a long breath, not judgmental, just disappointed. Hannah, I love you, but you trust too easily. She got up and walked to a tall filing cabinet by the wall. After a minute of rummaging, she pulled out her laptop and sat next to me. Let's look up your policy. I hesitated. Won't that alert him? No, she said. Not unless he's monitoring your every keystroke, and if he is, you wouldn't be here right now. Her bluntness was strangely comforting. She typed quickly, guiding me through the login. My stomach twisted when I saw the account summary appear on the screen. My life insurance policy had been raised from $250,000 to $2.5 million. Jesus Christ, Carla muttered, rubbing her forehead. That's not a marital adjustment, Hannah. That's a jackpot. My pulse hammered. I didn't approve that. I didn't even know he could. He forged the authorization, Carla cut in gently. Or he manipulated you into signing it. Either way, he meant business. Her words felt like ice. She clicked through a few more sections, and there it was. Beneficiary, Jason Reynolds. Secondary beneficiary, none. He hadn't even included Emma. It wasn't about family security. It was about eliminating me. A tremor ran down my arms. Carla, he's really going to do this, isn't he? Carla didn't sugarcoat it. He already started. It was nearly 11 p.m. when Carla finally sat back, folded her arms, and said, Okay, here's the good news. Good news? My husband wanted me dead. What possible good news could exist? Carla leaned forward. You're not alone anymore, and we're going to beat him at his own game. How? I asked, voice shaking. I can't just walk into a police station and tell them my daughter overheard her dad planning my murder. They'll think I'm hysterical. They might, Carla said, but Detective Morales won't. I blinked. Morales? From your old department? She nodded. He's one of the good ones, still believes evidence matters, still believes victims shouldn't need to be perfect to be believed. So he'll help? He will, Carla said, if we have something solid to give him. Just like that, the pressure inside me sharpened into focus. What do we need to find? I asked. Carla tapped her pen on the legal pad. Proof of intent, proof of coordination with Ruby, proof of financial motive, and, she drew another circle, proof of method. Method? I whispered. The lake house, Carla said. That's the crime scene he's planning, so we need to get ahead of him before he gets ahead of you. My stomach twisted. But he wants me to go there tomorrow. Carla nodded slowly. Which means he's on a schedule. There's no changing his mind now. He's committed to the plan. She stood up, grabbing her coat. You're not going home tonight. You're staying here with Emma. What about Jason? I asked. What if he notices? Carla smirked. Let him notice. The more panicked he gets, the more sloppy he'll become. Later that night, after I finally got Emma tucked into the guest bed, Carla and I sat on her porch with steaming mugs of tea. The air smelled like pine and damp earth. It should have been calming. Instead, everything inside me felt coiled and ready to snap. What if he comes looking for me? I whispered. Carla didn't flinch. Let him. I've handled worse than Jason Reynolds. I managed a weak laugh. I'm not used to thinking of my husband as dangerous. Oh, honey. Carla shook her head. Men like Jason don't start dangerous. They start entitled. Then they get desperate. I stared into my mug. He was never violent. Violence isn't just hitting someone, Carla said. It's a mindset. It's believing someone is worth more dead than alive. Her words sank deep. After a long moment, Carla tapped her pen against her knee. Tomorrow, we do 3 things. Okay, I whispered. What things? 1, she said, holding up a finger. We contact Morales and loop him in. I'll handle that. 2, another finger. We figure out what Jason has already prepared at the lake house. He's not improvising. Men like him rehearse their crimes. A chill ran down my spine. And 3, she held up the last finger. You go with Jason, just like he wants. My breath caught. Carla, no. I'm not letting him trap me there. You won't be trapped, she said firmly. Because you won't be alone. Morales will have eyes everywhere, and we'll control the timing, not Jason. I shook my head. But what if something goes wrong? Carla placed a steady hand on mine. Then we adapt. But Hannah... Her voice softened, just barely. Running won't save you. He'll chase you until he feels he's lost control completely. The only way out of this is straight through it. A tear slipped down my cheek. Carla squeezed my hand. By this time tomorrow, we'll have what we need to expose him. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. But as the night grew colder, all I could think about was the glint in Ruby's eyes, Jason's too-practiced smile, and Emma whispering, Mom, I think Dad wants you gone. And God help me. For the first time in my marriage, I believed her. The drive to Mirror Lake felt like a countdown to something I didn't want to name. Jason insisted on driving, like always. I sat in the passenger seat, hands folded tightly in my lap, pretending everything was fine while my heart beat loud enough to echo in my ears. The pine trees lining the winding road blurred into dark streaks. The sky was overcast gray, heavy, almost warning. Carla had drilled the plan into me. Go. Act normal. Watch everything. Don't let him know you know. And don't be alone with him near the water. Ever. Emma wasn't with us. Carla arranged for her to stay safely with a close friend in Portland. Jason didn't question it when I said Emma wasn't feeling well. In fact, he seemed relieved. The lake house sat quietly on the edge of Mirror Lake, a small wooden cabin Jason inherited from an uncle years ago. I used to think it was peaceful. Now it looked isolated, too isolated. Looks perfect, doesn't it? Jason said as he unlocked the door. Perfect. For who? I forced a smile. Yeah, it does. Inside, the cabin smelled of cedar and dust. Jason opened the windows to let fresh air in. I wondered if that was part of the plan, making it easier for my screams to drift unnoticed into the woods. I pushed the thought away before it made me physically sick. I wandered around the living room, pretending to admire the scenery, while my eyes scanned for anything that seemed out of place. The patio doors were spotless, too spotless. A faint, slick sheen reflected the light. Oil? Soap? Something to make the deck slippery? My chest tightened. "Dinner later?" Jason called from the kitchen. "I brought that wine you love." The one with the cork you'd never notice had been tampered with. "Maybe," I answered weakly. Just before sunset, as the woods grew shadowy and still, something unexpected happened. A car engine hummed outside. Jason stiffened. I walked to the window and froze. It was Ruby. Her blonde hair was in a messy bun. She wore a soft pink sweater and jeans, holding a tote bag like she'd just come from a casual errand, not a murder plot. She waved at Jason through the window, smiling too brightly. "What is she doing here?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. Jason fumbled. "Oh, she was around the area for an art retreat. She texted earlier about dropping off Emma's sketchbook." My stomach clenched. That was a terrible lie, even for him. Ruby stepped inside without waiting for permission. "Hannah! Wow! I didn't know you'd be here already!" Her voice rang too loudly in the small cabin. I gave a tight smile. "Why wouldn't I be?" Ruby blinked. Jason avoided eye contact, and for a moment, the silence felt like a noose tightening around all our throats. After some awkward small talk, Ruby offered to step outside for some inspiration shots by the lake. Jason went with her. I watched through the living room window as they walked onto the deck, too close, too comfortable, too rehearsed. Ruby's body language shifted the moment the door closed. Her smile dropped, her arms crossed, her shoulders stiffened. Jason looked frustrated, whispering sharply. Carla had warned me they'd likely meet privately to finalize the plan. What they didn't know was that my phone, hidden inside my jacket on the couch, was recording everything through the cracked window. Ruby paced along the wooden boards. "Jason, we can't keep waiting. She's here. This is the weekend you said—" "I know," he snapped. "You think I don't know what's at stake?" Ruby lowered her voice. "Then do it. The deck is perfect tonight. The boards are wet, and the slope—" Jason cut her off. "I'll take care of it. She'll come outside after dinner. I'll offer to take a picture of her by the railing. All she has to do is slip." Slip. The word scraped through me like a blade. Ruby leaned closer. "And the wine? Did you bring it?" Jason nodded. "Enough to knock her out if she doesn't fall the first time." I pressed a hand against my mouth to stop a gasp. They weren't planning just an accident. They had backup plans. Ruby stepped toward him, touching his chest. "Once the insurance clears, we can finally be together. No more sneaking around. No more lies." The way Jason looked at her, soft, hungry, was a look he hadn't given me in years. "Tomorrow," he whispered, "it'll all be over." Something metallic glinted from Jason's backpack when he turned. A gun. My breath hitched. Carla had warned he might improvise, but I didn't expect this. I backed away from the window, heart pounding so hard it felt like the wooden floor vibrated. The air inside the cabin was suffocating. I moved quietly to the hallway, grabbed my jacket, and slipped out the side door into the darkening forest behind the cabin. Carla was waiting at the predetermined spot, crouched behind a cluster of fir trees. She wore a black windbreaker and held binoculars and a radio. She looked like she hadn't blinked in hours. "You got here fast," she whispered. "I couldn't stay," I breathed, voice shaking. "Carla, he brought a gun." Her eyes hardened instantly. "That changes things," she said quietly. She lifted the binoculars and watched Jason and Ruby on the dock. "He's accelerating his plan." "Morales' team needs to be ready sooner than we thought." "When are they getting into position?" I asked. "Now," Carla said, clicking her radio. Unit 1, move to the south trail. Unit 2, circle behind the cabin. And Morales, we have confirmation of a firearm. Repeat, firearm is present. Her voice was cool, practiced, deadly calm. She turned to me. Hannah, she whispered, you cannot go anywhere near that deck tonight. Then what do we do? My voice cracked. Carla glanced toward the water, where Jason and Ruby stood plotting my death in the fading light. We force their hand, she said, but on our terms. She placed a hand on my shoulder. And Hannah, you need to be brave for what comes next. Before I could ask what she meant, Carla's radio crackled with Morales' voice. Copy. Teams in position. Wait for the signal. Carla exhaled. We move now. Carla squeezed my arm once firm, grounding before we stepped out of the woods. I kept low, moving exactly where she directed. The moon had risen behind thin clouds, casting the lake in a muted, silver glow. It felt unreal, like stepping into someone else's nightmare. But this was mine. We reached the edge of the tree line just as Jason and Ruby walked back into the cabin. Their silhouettes passed behind the window, moving with purpose. They weren't celebrating. They weren't relaxed. They were preparing. Carla pressed the radio to her lips. Units, stand by. We're initiating the diversion. I whispered. What am I supposed to do? Her expression softened just enough. You go in there and confront him. You force him to talk. Morales needs verbal confirmation, intent, motive, method. He slips up under pressure. Trust me. Carla, what if he shoots? That's why we're surrounding him, she said. He won't get the chance. My stomach twisted painfully, but I nodded. There was no turning back. Not anymore. Carla ushered me toward the cabin's back steps. When he sees you outside, he'll panic. That's what we want. I took a long breath and opened the door. Jason was at the kitchen counter pouring wine into 2 glasses, one noticeably more full than the other. Ruby stood beside him, holding her arms tight across her stomach. They both froze when they saw me. Hannah? Jason blinked. You're up. I needed air, I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Can we talk? Ruby's eyes darted to the back door. Jason's jaw twitched. Sure, he said slowly. Let's step outside. Perfect. He wanted to play along with his plan. Let him walk into it. I stepped out first, onto the deck he had carefully inspected earlier. Jason followed, just a few feet behind me. Ruby hovered in the doorway, nervous, chewing a fingernail. The lake stretched out before us, dark and silent. I turned to face him. Jason, I said quietly. Is this where it happens? Here? On the slippery deck? The words hit him like a thunderclap. His face drained of color. Ruby let out a tiny gasp. What are you talking about? Jason stammered. I took a step closer, eyes locked on his. The insurance money. The plan with Ruby. The accident. I know everything. For a moment, he froze, completely frozen, like his brain short-circuited. Then the mask slipped. Hannah, he said carefully, you're being emotional. You don't know what you're saying. I nodded slowly. Then tell me what Emma heard. Explain why my 8-year-old daughter listened to you whispering with Ruby about how things would be easier if I wasn't in the picture. Ruby flinched hard. Hannah, it wasn't. Save it, I snapped. Jason's eyes darkened. Emma misunderstood. Then why did you raise my life insurance to $2.5 million? I asked, voice icy. Why did you plan this weekend? Why did you bring a gun? He inhaled sharply through his nose. His right hand twitched toward the back of his waistband. I moved before he could speak. Morales has everything, Jason. Every word from earlier. The recorder picked up the entire conversation by the water. Silence. Cold. Endless. Ruby's face crumpled. You said, Jason, you said we were safe. You said she'd be asleep. Her voice rose, cracking. You said there wouldn't be any problems. Jason turned on her so fast she recoiled. Shut up, Ruby. I will not shut up, she yelled, fists trembling. I gave up everything for you, my job, my reputation, my whole life, and you said once the insurance paid out, we'd— Ruby! Jason barked, stepping toward her. Automatically, I stepped back. He followed too quickly. His footsteps sounded heavy on the boards. Jason, I warned. Don't, he snapped. Not in a dramatic, cinematic way, not with a scream. Just snapped, quietly and completely. You ruined everything, he hissed. If you had just listened, if you had just trusted me, if you had just fallen. He lunged. I stumbled backward just as a flashlight beam sliced through the trees. Jason Reynolds, police! Drop the weapon! Morales' voice boomed across the deck. 3 officers emerged from the woods, guns raised, steady. Jason grabbed my arm and yanked me against his chest, breath hot and wild against my ear. Stay back! He screamed at them. Stay the hell back! I felt metal pressing into my side. The gun. He had it out. Hannah, he hissed. You're going to walk to the edge with me. Don't fight. Don't make this worse. My pulse thundered. I could feel his hands shaking not with fear, but with rage. Morales took a slow step forward. Jason, let her go. It's over. No! Jason roared. It's not over! Nothing is over until she is gone! Ruby sobbed behind him. Jason, please, please stop. They're going to kill you. Jason ignored her. Hannah, he whispered, voice suddenly calm and dead. This ends tonight. Just cooperate. And then something inside me snapped too, not from fear, but from fury. No, I said. I'm done cooperating with a man who wanted me dead. His grip faltered, just for a second, but that was all Morales needed. A loud crack ripped through the night Morales fired, hitting Jason's arm. The gun flew out of his hand, clattering across the boards. Jason screamed, collapsing to his knees. Officers surged forward, pinning him, cuffing him as he thrashed. Ruby screamed hysterically. This wasn't supposed to happen. She wasn't supposed to survive. Everything went still. The words hung in the air, damning, undeniable, echoing across the lake. Morales inhaled slowly, exhaled, and stepped toward me. It's over, Hannah, he said gently. You're safe now. But as I looked at Jason pinned to the deck, at Ruby sobbing into her hands, at the lake where I was supposed to die tonight, I knew one thing with chilling clarity. This wasn't the end. This was only the beginning of surviving what they tried to do. In movies, the moment the villain is arrested feels like a clean ending. Real life doesn't work that way. The night Jason was taken into custody, I found myself sitting in the back of an ambulance, wrapped in a blanket even though I wasn't cold. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. My mind kept replaying the moment he grabbed me, the pressure of the gun at my ribs, his voice whispering that everything would finally be over. It wasn't over. Not yet. Detective Morales approached gently, as if afraid I might shatter. Hannah, he said, we're taking him to the county jail. Ruby too. Both are charged with attempted murder, conspiracy, insurance fraud, and possession of a firearm during a criminal act. I nodded, unable to speak. He lowered his voice. You weren't just lucky tonight. You were brave. And your daughter, she saved your life. My throat tightened. I know. He handed me a business card. Call me if you need anything. And Hannah, when this goes to trial, it's going to be a lot. But you're not alone. For the first time in months, I believed that. The next day, Carla drove me back to Portland. Neither of us talked much. I kept thinking about Emma, my sweet 8-year-old, whose only crime was overhearing a truth no child should ever have to carry. When we arrived at Carla's house, Emma ran outside before the car even stopped. She threw her arms around my waist so hard I lost my breath. Mom! Mom, are you okay? I heard something happened, and Aunt Carla said Dad... Her voice cracked. I knelt down, cupping her face. I'm okay. I promise. And you did everything right. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Is Dad going to jail? I swallowed. Yes. Her little shoulders sagged with conflict fear, sadness, relief all mixed into something too complicated for a child. Does that mean he really wanted you gone? I looked her in the eyes. Yes, but you stopped him. You saved me. She buried her face in my chest and started sobbing. And I held her, rocking slowly, whispering the same words over and over. You're safe. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. The trial began 4 months later. I'd imagined it would bring closure, but instead, it reopened every wound. Sitting in the courtroom, facing Jason in his orange jumpsuit, seeing Ruby pale and trembling beside her public defender, it was surreal. Jason wouldn't look at me at first. When he finally did, his eyes were hard cold, not the eyes of the man I thought I married. He blamed me. He blamed Emma. He even blamed Ruby. He blamed everyone except himself. The prosecution presented the recordings from the lake house, Jason rehearsing my death, Ruby pushing him to hurry, their whispers about insurance money and life after I was gone. The jury listened in horrified silence. Ruby broke first. Under pressure, she admitted everything. The affair, the planning, the staged conversations, the pressure Jason put on her to make this work. She sobbed on the stand. Jason shattered next. When the prosecutor asked whether he raised the insurance policy, he snapped, I deserved that money. She wasn't supposed to make it so hard. That was it. The courtroom gasped. The jury had heard enough. The verdict came quickly. Guilty on all counts. Jason was sentenced to 35 years in prison. Ruby received 18 years for her role. When the judge read the sentence, Jason finally looked at me not with love, not with regret, but with a hollow, exhausted hatred. The kind that comes from someone who lost everything he believed he deserved. And for the first time, I felt nothing for him. He no longer had power over me. Life didn't magically fix itself after that. Trauma lingers. Healing isn't a straight line. Emma went to therapy every week. She talked about her nightmares, her fears, her confusion about loving a father who tried to take her mother's life. She learned that it wasn't her fault, that she was brave, that telling the truth saved us both. I kept my job at the hospital, but cut my hours, pouring more time into a domestic violence support center in downtown Portland. Survivors came in with stories different from mine, but woven with the same thread of betrayal. I listened, I helped, I learned, and in helping them, I slowly began to heal myself. Carla became more than family. She became my anchor, the one who reminded me every day that intuition is not paranoia, that silence can be deadly, and that evidence is often hiding in plain sight if you're brave enough to look. Years passed. Real years, not movie montages. Years filled with therapy, school drop-offs, nervous nights, gradual peace, and mornings where the sun felt warm again. One afternoon, when Emma was 12, I found her in the backyard, sitting on a picnic blanket with her paints scattered around her. She was working on a watercolor soft blues and golds layered around the silhouette of a woman standing strong at the edge of a lake. I froze. The figure looked like me. Emma glanced up. "Hey, Mom, like it?" I sat beside her. "It's beautiful." She dipped her brush again. "It's called After the Storm. My art teacher says we should paint things that changed us." A small ache filled my chest, but not the painful kind. The kind that comes with holding something precious. "Emma," I asked softly, "are you happy?" She paused, thinking. "Yeah," she said finally. "I mean, it took a while, but I feel safe, and you smile more now. You laugh again. That makes me happy." My throat tightened. "I am happy," I whispered, "because we survived the people who were supposed to love us." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "And we're better now, aren't we?" I kissed the top of her hair. "We are." The sun warmed our faces. The trees swayed gently. And for the first time in years, the lake didn't feel like a crime scene in my memory. It felt like a beginning. If there's one thing I learned, it's this. Never ignore the quiet warning. Never underestimate a child's intuition. And never forget that sometimes the person planning your downfall smiles across the dinner table. But love, real love, pure love, the kind you fight for comes from the ones who choose to save you, not the ones who try to erase you. And Emma saved me, so I could save us both.